I often think of it.
I'm sure.
People I met for only an hour or two. And great kindnesses. Bravery. The fact that you could meet someone for an hour or two. See the very best of them.
Meryl Streep remembers her heroic days in World War II and Plenty, one of the new movies we'll be reviewing this week. I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. In addition to Plenty, we'll also be reviewing the romantic comedy Maxie, with Glenn Close playing the reincarnation of a 1920s flapper. Also, Paul Schrader's Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters, the dramatization of the suicide of a great Japanese writer. But first, Roger begins with Crossover Dreams, the story of a singer who wants to break out of his ghetto neighborhood.
Crossover Dreams tells the story of a talented young Puerto Rican musician in New York City who dreams of crossing over from the clubs in the Latino neighborhood to the big time of TV shows and recording contracts. And there for a while, he realizes his dream, but this is not the usual rags to riches musical biographical formula that Hollywood worked to death back in the 1940s and the 1950s. This is a thoughtful movie about the compromises the singer has to make and whether or not they're worth it. Crossover Dreams is also a high-energy film with a sense of humor. You can see that in this scene where the singer auditions before a hard-boiled agent.
Okay, Mr. Rose, you know, this is a song that's called Me, Who Knows What Is Good for Baby and Tuning. It's a low-budget tape, you know, so... okay, now. Oh, the third chorus not there. Like the Beatles. You know, I know.
That's Reuben Blades is the singer, and at about the same time he's trying to break out of the barrio, an older musician drops dead on stage. This is a scene in a bar right after the funeral.
I'm gonna get out of here. Yeah. I'm gonna get out of here.
You think you're gonna get out of here, huh? Are you some kind of magician or something? You're gonna get on your little magic carpet and fly away, huh?
No, I'm scared, okay? I see the future in that church. It looks like...
Drink your drink, man.
It's always hard, okay, I know, to leave the things that you know behind. But if we stay, Orlando, believe me, if we stay, we're dead.
There's a lot of good music in Crossover Dreams, like in this scene where the band is just beginning to attract wider attention. Reuben Blades, good actor and a good singer, too. Crossover Dreams is like a lot of different movies, all occupying the same space at the same time. It's a musical, and it's a story of a man who's blinded by his dreams of success, and it shows him at the beginning and at the top and at the end. It also suggests that if crossing over means doing what you think other people expect of you instead of what you believe in yourself, you may be crossing over to your own destruction. This is a thoughtful movie, but I don't want to make it sound too serious because it has great music in it, and a lot of joy and humor and high energy. I liked it a whole lot.
I like the humor of it all and the music. Oh, and he is an engaging performer. I wish the film had been a little harder maybe on its subject, because I think what it really is trying to say is it's okay to cross over, but cross over on your terms. Don't cross over on the mass culture's terms. You'll feel better, and actually you'll probably have greater success. I think if the film had been a little harder on that point at the end, I thought the film went a little bit soft at the end. That was my only problem with it. It's a lot of fun.
I'm not really sure that that is what they're saying. It almost seems to be a statement that the system will not allow you to cross over on your terms. In other words, you can't take your music and make it big. You have to start and make their music big.
Yes.
And then if you fail, then they say, well, it was your fault.
Okay, that's right. But, Roger, both you and I know that Reuben Blades has crossed over. The real Reuben Blades is the real singer, and he has crossed over. He's on the front of New York Magazine. That's called crossing over.
Okay, well, then there's a little irony in there. Okay.
You call it irony, I call it a little inconsistency. Other than that, though, it's a pretty joyful
It's a real
film.
good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It's opening around the country in the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. Coming up next at the movies, Glenn Close finds a 1920s flapper inhabiting her body.
Oh, I hate to waste such good hooch. Have one on you? Don't mind if I do.
Here's something different. Our next film is Maxie, a comedy with, frankly, not a very interesting premise in the first place. Normally, when we don't like a movie, we say, well, it has an interesting premise, but it goes wrong. This one, even if it were done well, would be bad. And it isn't done well. Glenn Close plays a San Francisco housewife married to Mandy Patinkin, a librarian, and their life together is quite dull until the spirit of a tough-talking 1920s flapper who once lived in their house starts to inhabit Glenn Close's body on occasion, quite against her will. For example, at a party attended by her husband's boss.
Gee, I wish they'd play something I knew. Now, where did my sheik go? Where there's dancing, there's floozies. Parking lot. Go peddle it elsewhere, lady. The goods look damaged. My man ain't buying.
I beg your pardon.
Consider yourself pardoned. I'll take a hike.
What?
I said scram. Hit the bricks. Take a powder.
This is my wife, Jan. Jan, this is Mishima, my new boss.
Only during working hours. Now, boss lady, would you take your arm off him, or should I just take your arm off? Period.
Why, Nick, your wife is charming in a very primitive way.
See, it's supposed to be funny. She's talking in that Brooklyn accent. Later in the film, the spirit of the flapper, known as Maxie, tries to fulfill a lifelong ambition of becoming a movie star, a goal that was cut short in her time.
Wait, oh! What makes you think Jan's going to allow this?
You're going to talk her into it. I'm going to strip and hit the sack. You want to watch?
Damn it, don't do that to me. See? Maxie, be reasonable. How am I going to talk Jan into this?
It's one day out of her whole life. Then I'll scram for real, I promise.
She'll have to take the days off. That is, if we're not both unemployed. And she probably won't like what you've done to her hair, not to mention the fact she's never been particularly fond of you.
You're a bright boy, you'll think of something.
I'm stunned at what this movie thinks is funny. I mean, gee, right then she was Maxie. On another scene, she was Jan, an actress playing two roles. Ooh, and the roles don't like each other. Who cares? I'm stunned at how bad this film is. The problem with the movie is that Glenn Close plays two roles, and one is more boring than the next. And actually, if you had to make a choice, Maxie the Flapper, the one you just saw there, is more boring. I find nothing interesting with her. I wouldn't want to spend 5 minutes with her. And the movie forces us to spend about 45 minutes with her. As for Mandy Patinkin's character, he's a dullard. He just stands around while these two crazy women run around. This is like one of those bad Neil Simon adaptations of one of his plays, but with the jokes taken out. There are no jokes in this film. I found absolutely no entertainment value in Maxie.
I like the word you used, stunned.
Yeah.
I was stunned, too. I was looking at the screen thinking this wouldn't even make it as a failed television situation.
Yeah, that's correct.
And furthermore, the actor, not only is it a gimmick, the actors seem to know it's a gimmick. There is no feeling that either Glenn Close or Mandy Patinkin believe that their characters are really in this dilemma. Now, you take Patinkin in the last scene that we just saw. He's about to go to bed with a woman who doesn't think that she's his wife. Now, aren't there some possibilities there?
Right.
Not in this movie. He's, oh, who are you now? Is basically his reaction to all of this. and then she comes around with all of her dumb response. It's really a bad movie.
The only explanation for why these two fine actors, Glenn Close and Mandy Patinkin, terrific on stage on Broadway, why would they be in this? They must have gotten paid a fortune.
There might be another reason. They might have thought it was going to be cute. They probably thought it was going to be one of those delicate, fragile, little 1940s Rosalind Russell type things, and it wasn't. Next at the movie, the story of a Japanese novelist who takes pleasure in killing himself. Next movie is a challenging and visionary film named Mishima, and I think it's one of the most interesting and best movies in a long time. It tells the story of Yukio Mishima, the most famous Japanese writer of the years after World War II, and one of the most controversial still. He believed that the war had separated the two sides of the Japanese character, the poetry and the strength, the sword and the chrysanthemum. And so, in addition to writing novels and plays and poetry, the chrysanthemum, he founded a private army dedicated to upholding the samurai ideal, the sword. The movie tells his story in three different ways with three different styles, and we're going to look at all three styles. First, in black and white, scenes from Mishima's unhappy childhood.
I looked after my grandmother's failing health. She entertained me with stories and provided playmates. On special occasions, she arranged trips to the theater.
そんなにやたらに謝るもんじゃござんせんよ。武家の子孫ともあろうものが。おばあ様が子供の頃は、もうちっとは礼儀作法というものがござんしたのね。ほら、召し上がれ。でもまあ、こんな人混みの中で、まあ、坊やは弱いんだから。だけど坊やも、やっと歌舞伎を見る年におなりだね。
The film turns to color for highly stylized scenes from Mishima's novels. This is from his book Temple of the Golden Pavilion, and look at the spectacular effect of the sets by the fashion designer Iaiko. The third strand in the movie recreates the events on the last day of Mishima's life, when he led his private army to occupy a Japanese army garrison and had a vision of the fulfillment he would find in his own death.
The closed cockpit and outer space were like the spirit and body of the same being. In this stillness was a beauty beyond words. No more body or spirit, pen or sword, male or female. Then I saw a giant circle coiled around the earth, a ring that resolved all polarity, a ring vaster than death, more fragrant than any scent I'd ever known. Here was the moment I had always been seeking.
So then he goes ahead to give a speech to those soldiers, those astonished soldiers who see the most famous writer in their country standing there on the rooftop talking to them. He tells them about the samurai ideal, and meanwhile, he has their general tied up inside his office. Seconds after the speech was over, Mishima committed seppuku, ceremonial suicide, disemboweling himself while one of his followers beheaded him. His life and death in 1970 did indeed seem to symbolize the irreconcilable nature of those two opposites, the poet and the soldier, the sword and the chrysanthemum. Mishima is a Japanese movie by an American director, Paul Schrader, the same man who wrote Taxi Driver and directed American Gigolo, and he seems to almost specialize in the tension between high ideals and fundamental human violence. The sheer audacity of this movie is amazing. It's the story of a man's life and death, a survey of his artistic achievement, and a statement on modern Japan. I thought it was fascinating from one end to the other. A great movie.
A great movie, and I'll tell you, we are living in a time when the attempt to make great movies is so rare.
That's right.
And here is something even, and I applaud that when that happens. Here is one where he's trying to hit a home run, and he hits it. Well, there's so much to think about. First of all, I think he accomplishes something very difficult, which is you have a guy killing himself. And we're supposed to, one, identify with this guy and in some way admire him or at least appreciate what he's trying to do. That's a very difficult thing. Talk about downbeat endings. Actually, the ending, if you see the film, is quite hopeful in a way which I will not reveal. It also is encouraging in dealing with the film, dealing with notions of art and ideas. He talks about no more male, no more female, pen and sword. These are terrific things for the movies to talk about and pictorialize instead of car crashes. It's extraordinary.
One of the things I like about the film is that it is essentially an intellectual subject, a movie about the life and death of, well, indeed, a very sensational artist who died in a spectacular way, but nevertheless a serious artist. And yet, even though it is intellectual and serious about Mishima's life, it is also a movie.
Entertaining.
It is not only a movie, but it is a constantly dazzling movie. The idea of taking the segments of his novels and visualizing them with these wonderful sets so that you get an idea of Mishima's, what was going on in terms of his fantasy world, and then the everyday life, and then what happened in his childhood. This is one heck of a movie.
It's a brilliantly organized film. I think in the history of cinema, this is one of the most well-organized films trying to treat an artist. Normally we see the artist, what, as a typewriter, crumpling up the paper and throwing away, then drinking. I mean, that's the way the artists are handling
They never know how to handle a writer's life. This is, okay, you just gave me an idea. This is probably the best movie I've ever seen about a writer's life.
Coming up next at the movies, Meryl Streep stars in the saga of a woman deeply affected by the true love and passion she experienced during World War II.
This is the doctor's number, my dear. With my permission, he can put you inside.
Miss Plenty, starring Meryl Streep as a woman who is deeply influenced by her experiences during World War II, where she comes to know true love and true courage. By comparison, the rest of her life and the lives of those around her are a sham in the war years after, full of double talk and materialism. Desperate for some kind of authenticity in her life, she asks a man to help her have a child. But when that doesn't work out, she's enraged.
You think it's my fault? Lord. Is that all you're worried about?
You think it's something to do with me?
That was part of it, never to have to drag through this kind of idiot argument. You don't understand. You don't understand the figures in my mind. Mick, will you go now, please?
You people are cruel. Both of you. And you. You!
Now, years later, she settles for a marriage to a milquetoast diplomat. She's spiteful to him and to his colleagues, including Ambassador John Gielgud.
No, we never really met, that's true. Nevertheless, before I go, perhaps I might be permitted to put you right on a point of fact. Ingmar Bergman is not a bloody Norwegian. He is a bloody Swede. Good night, everybody.
He's going to resign.
Don't you think? I mean, isn't this thrilling? Everything's up for grabs. At last we will see some changes, thank the Lord. Now, I can get you more dinner. There is ham and chicken, and pickles and lettuce and tomatoes, and there are a couple of pheasants in the fridge. Oh, and there's bottles and bottles and bottles of claret in the cellar. Why not? There is plenty.
Now, at this point, she's really going crazy about the hypocrisy she sees around her. The point of the movie Plenty, as I see it, is that the writer of this piece, the English playwright David Hare, is saying that people would be a lot better off if they really confronted their feelings and said what was on their mind instead of being forced to, frankly, shoot a gun in the air to get some attention. In this film and another film out now he wrote called Weatherby with Vanessa Redgrave, we see the damage done by the British tradition of keeping a stiff upper lip and an equally rigid heart. Plenty is a film that rambles on at times. I don't think it's as good as Weatherby, but the point that Hare is making still comes through. It's just a little more convoluted getting there this time. On balance, I like the film.
I like the film a whole lot, too, but I differ with your reading of the film. I think this movie is about a woman who is emotionally unstable from beginning to end. She starts out as a freedom fighter in World War II, fighting against the Germans in France, and then theoretically, in peacetime, she's never able to find a role for herself as a woman or as a wife. I don't buy that. She's not a very good fighter in France. She's totally inept and incompetent. That's shown. And then consistently throughout the movie, she's unbalanced. And at one point she says, I just have a tendency to let myself go a little bit too much. I think it's a character study of a particular person rather than an indictment of British society.
Okay, well, I think that if more people were like her, obviously the country would be a lot more exciting.
That's true, yes.
And I think that's what he's saying, too. Yes, I think what's interesting and maybe difficult for audiences to accept that this heroine isn't a goody-goody. That she
right.
isn't. But at the same time, I think that there is a good quality in her, and that is the speaking out while all around her are giving consensus thought.
I don't even agree with you there. I think often when she speaks out, it's just to make trouble for people and to make their lives miserable. But anyway, can we agree it's a good performance, Meryl Streep?
Yes, except in the beginning where I thought it was obvious she was with her accent.
Okay, so we both like the movie, but we can't seem to figure out what part of it we like. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's program. We both voted thumbs up for Crossover Dreams, the high-energy story of the rise and fall of a Latino musician. I liked it more than Gene did. But two big thumbs down for Maxie, the limp and predictable story of a flapper reincarnated as a yuppie. It's too bad our skunk is on vacation. We both very much admired Mishima, Paul Schrader's brilliant and challenging film about Japan's most controversial modern writers. And two thumbs up for Plenty with its wonderful performance by Meryl Streep as a woman who finds life meaningless after her adventures in World War II. And for all of the thumbs up this week, I think the two real biggest cheers are for Mishima.
Absolutely. That's the one I want to see again. That's it for this week. Next time we'll review 4 more new movies, including Sweet Dreams, starring Jessica Lange, and the story of country singer Patsy Cline. Also, Marie with Sissy Spacek, and the true story of a woman who blew the whistle on corruption in the Tennessee prison system. That's next week, and until then, we'll see you at the